They never really saw me. Not my parents, not my sister. At every family dinner, I was the afterthought, the quiet one, the underachiever, the so-called lost cause. Meanwhile, my sister Renee, she was the golden child, the rising star in military intelligence, the one everyone praised. And I learned to swallow the comments, let the taunts slide, and bite my tongue so hard it left scars no one could see. But all of that changed in one moment. One unexpected night, in a ballroom full of guests, a Navy officer turned to me, stood tall, and said, "Commander Wheeler, SEAL team leader." The room went silent. My father's face froze. My mother's eyes welled up, and my sister-me biggest critic looked at me like I was a stranger. That night, she found out something else too. Years ago, without even knowing it, I saved her life. This isn't just a story about medals or secret missions. It's about something far deeper. What it means to be underestimated by your own family. And how sometimes the quietest among us are carrying the heaviest truths. If you've ever been doubted, dismissed, or made to feel like you weren't enough, this story is for you. Because sometimes the loudest vindication doesn't come from shouting back. It comes when the people who wrote you off are finally forced to see the strength you never needed to prove. Stick around, because what happened next will change the way you see silence, identity, and family forever. And if this hits home even just a little, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Let's talk. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful true stories that matter. My name is Monica Wheeler. I'm 34, a Navy SEAL, one of the first women to make it through the program. But for most of my life, none of that mattered because, at home, I was always just the other daughter, the one who couldn't measure up. Renee, my older sister, was everything I wasn't, at least in my parents' eyes. She was brilliant, outspoken, polished, top of her class. Straight into the Air Force as an intelligence officer. Every family holiday, every dinner, every graduation photo, she was the pride of the Wheeler name. And me? I was the girl who didn't follow the plan. The one who skipped the big family send-off, who didn't talk about her work, who disappeared for long stretches and never said why. At first, I didn't mind. I figured, let her have the spotlight. I had my path. I had my reasons. But as the years passed, the silence turned into judgment. Little jabs at the dinner table. Maybe it's time you figured things out, Monica. You could have done something real with your life. Renee said things like that without hesitation and worse, with a smile. My parents never corrected her. But the truth was, I had figured things out. I had survived BUD/S training, the most brutal test of physical and mental endurance in the military. I'd led missions in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. I had a team who trusted me with their lives. I had purpose, just not one I could talk about, because my work was classified. And because part of me still hoped, maybe one day they'd see me without me having to say it. Then came the gala. My dad, a retired Navy officer himself, was being honored for his service. He asked both Renee and me to be there. We hadn't been in the same room in over 2 years. Still, I went. Not because I was hopeful, but because I respected the uniform, and I respected him. The night started as expected. Guests sipping champagne, people trading war stories and political jokes, Renee holding court like she always did. I stuck to the edges of the room, making polite conversation, waiting for it to be over. Then it happened. A voice behind me. "Commander Wheeler?" I turned. Captain Bradley Pierce. Special Forces. I hadn't seen him in months. We exchanged the usual nods, quiet and professional. But then he raised his voice just enough for the room to hear and said, "You saved my life in Aleppo. You and your team. I didn't know it was you until now." The air shifted. People around us went quiet. My dad looked up from across the room. Renee stopped mid-sentence. I nodded, calm on the outside, my pulse hammering. "We were just doing our job," I said. But it was too late. The silence was thick now. Then Dad spoke, his voice uncertain. "Monica, SEAL training. Is that true?" I looked him in the eye. "Yes, 6 years ago. I made it through. I couldn't tell you it was classified." My mom's hands flew to her mouth. "You were in danger all these years, and we didn't even know?" Renee's voice cut through, sharp and angry. "You lied. All this time, you let me think you were just drifting when you were doing this?" I kept my voice steady. I wasn't playing soldier, Renee. I was leading missions. I've been shot at. I've pulled my team out of hell. I didn't tell you because I wasn't allowed to, and because you never really wanted to know. She opened her mouth to argue, but then Bradley stepped forward. She's one of the best. Her record speaks for itself. That mission in Syria? It was considered a suicide op. Monica led the team. We survived because of her. Renee went pale. Her voice dropped. Wait, Syria? Last year, I was deployed there. Bradley nodded. You were in our unit. You didn't know it then, but Monica's team saved you too. The room froze. Renee's face crumpled. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The silence said it all. For the first time in my life, I watched my sister see me. Not as the disappointment, not as the mistake, but as the woman who had risked everything for her. And in that moment, with my father speechless, my mother in tears, and Renee unraveling, something in me finally settled. They didn't have to clap. They didn't have to cheer. But for the first time, I wasn't invisible. And that changed everything. Renee sank into her chair, stunned. Her fingers trembled slightly as she stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. The pride, the sarcasm, all gone. Just silence. Then, finally, her voice is small and cracking. Why didn't you tell me? That question hit harder than her insults ever did. I swallowed, steadying my breath. Because I couldn't, I said, and because you never would have believed me if I had. Bradley stepped back, sensing the shift in the room. Dad was still standing, his expression unreadable. But his eyes were searching. Not angry, not ashamed, just trying to understand. Monica, he said slowly. That operation? You got a commendation for that? I nodded once. It's in a file no one will ever read, but yeah, we pulled it off. We all came home. My mom reached for me then. Her hand was warm, shaking, gripping mine like it grounded her. You saved your sister's life, she whispered. Her tears had returned. Only this time they weren't just from fear. They were from guilt and pride. Renee stayed quiet. I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before remorse. The walls she'd built so carefully were cracking. I didn't know, she said again. I thought you were wasting your life. I looked right at her. You decided who I was before you ever really asked? She flinched, then nodded. I did. Her voice was raw. I was the one carrying the family name, or I thought I was. That line hung in the air. Dad cleared his throat. He wasn't one for emotion, but this time his tone had changed, softer, careful. Monica, I misjudged you. Badly. I pushed you to follow the Navy path my way, but you found your own. I'd waited years for words like that, and hearing them, I didn't feel vindicated, I just felt tired. Mom squeezed my hand again. We should have seen you, she said quietly. All this time we were proud of the wrong things. And just like that, it wasn't about anger anymore. It was about years lost, stories untold, and a family finally starting to listen. The room stayed quiet for a long time. Then my secure phone buzzed. It always buzzed at the worst times. I stepped away to a corner, answered in a low voice. Commander Wheeler, came Foster's clipped tone. We've got movement. Transport leaves Norfolk Base at 600. Copy that, I said. I'll be there. I tucked the phone away and turned back. Dad's eyes met mine instantly. He knew. Mission? He asked. Tomorrow morning, I replied. Mom's face fell. Already? I nodded. I've got 3 days stateside. That's it? Renee finally looked at me again, her voice softer now. Is it dangerous? I gave her a small smile. They're all dangerous. But my team's solid, we've got each other's backs. Bradley stood up beside me. You've got a hell of a sister, Renee, he said gently. I've served under her command. She's not just good, she's rare. Renee didn't respond, but her silence had shifted. It didn't feel cold anymore. It felt heavy. Dad straightened, a familiar sharpness in his stance. Monica, he said, don't stay at some hotel. Come home. We've got a guest room. We've got years to catch up on. It wasn't a demand. It was an offer. Tentative, but real. I hesitated, then nodded. I'd like that. That night, the old house felt different. Familiar, but warmer. Mom made coffee and insisted we sit in the living room. Navy medals still hung on the wall alongside Renee's Air Force photos. For once, I didn't feel like I didn't belong. Dad asked questions, gentle ones. Nothing that crossed the classified line. Just curiosity, not control. Attrition rate? He asked. 85%, I answered. Only 3 women made it through my class. He nodded, impressed. Hell Week? I smiled faintly. Lived up to the name. Renee stayed quiet, nursing her mug, but she was listening, every word. Then Mom pulled out an old photo album. She flipped it open and stopped on a picture of me at a high school swim meet. I was grinning, medal in hand. We kept this, she said. I always thought you were brilliant, Monica. I just didn't say it enough. Something inside me shifted. The old bitterness didn't feel sharp anymore. It just felt finished. It's okay, Mom, I said. I found my way. Later that night, Renee caught me alone in the hallway, her voice low, almost shy. I was jealous, she admitted. You did something I couldn't, and I hated that. I'm sorry. I nodded slowly. We're different, Renee. You're a damn good officer. I just needed to be something else. She looked at me, eyes softer than I'd ever seen. I want to know you, the real you. I smiled. We'll get there, one day. The next morning, my bag was packed, my phone already buzzing with updates. Downstairs, Dad stood waiting in his old navy jacket, medals pinned. When I reached the door, he straightened and gave a crisp salute. Commander Wheeler, he said. My throat tightened. I returned the salute. Take care out there, Monica, he said. Mom hugged me. Come back safe. Renee stood by the door, quiet. Then finally, be careful. I'm proud of you. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. At the airport, I checked my phone and typed a quick message. When I'm back, let's talk. Sister to sister. I hit send. Then boarded the plane. As Norfolk disappeared beneath the clouds, I didn't feel like the invisible girl anymore. I felt like me. Commander Monica Wheeler. SEAL. Leader. Sister. Whole. The landing at Norfolk was rough, as usual. I'd barely stepped off the plane before the briefing started. No time for rest. No time to think. Just the rhythm of my life now go, where you're needed, lead who needs you, and get everyone home. We were wheels up again by nightfall. This one was different though. We weren't going deep into hostile territory this time. We were working with local allies, some trusted, some not. A rescue op civilian aid workers had been taken. We were told it was a quick mission. In and out, no mess. But there's no such thing as quick when lives are at stake. My team was sharp. Lieutenant Ramos had my 6, like always. Carter, our sniper, barely spoke but didn't miss. Kim, our newest, was still learning but had grit. I could see the nerves in her shoulders as she double-checked her gear beside me. I leaned in quietly. You're ready, I said. She nodded, swallowing hard. I just don't want to screw up. You won't, I said. You've trained for this, and we've got you. That's what leadership is, really. Not yelling, not showing off. It's knowing your people, reading them, trusting them to rise. We moved at night, quiet, tight formation. The terrain was a mess hills and brush, heat that wrapped around you like a second skin. We made contact faster than expected. Shots rang out, sharp and sudden, but our intel was off. There were more hostiles than predicted, a lot more. Things got bad fast. We split into 2 squads to circle the compound. I led the flank. We reached the outer wall just as the first explosion hit. Debris flew. My ears rang. My chest hit the ground hard. But I was up in seconds, shouting commands, pulling Carter up beside me. Inside the compound, it was chaos. Smoke, yelling. I could hear someone screaming in the distance, female, young, one of the aid workers. We moved room by room, clearing carefully. Then I saw her curled up behind a metal desk, tears streaked down her dusty face. I knelt beside her. We're Navy, I said. You're safe. We're taking you home. She nodded quickly, sobbing. I lifted her gently. Stay close, I told her. Don't run, don't stop. Outside, I radioed Kim. Status? 2 civilians secured, she said, heading to Exfil Point. Copy, we've got one, moving out. But before we could go, gunfire broke again closer this time. They were circling. We were boxed in. I grabbed the aid worker's hand and pulled her behind a concrete slab. Stay here, I said, no matter what you hear. We laid down cover fire, inching toward the evac zone. Bullets kicked up dirt all around us. Carter took a hit in the vest wind knocked out of him, but he was okay. Barely. Ramos grabbed his arm and dragged him behind cover. I spotted an opening, yelled for the team to move. We broke cover and ran. I felt the burn in my legs, the weight of the girl in my arms. My radio crackled, extraction inbound. 1 minute out. We made it. The chopper kicked up a storm of dirt as it landed hard. I lifted the girl in and turned to grab Carter when I felt the sharp snap in my shoulder, a bullet tearing through. The pain was instant, blinding. I gritted my teeth, shoved Carter forward. Ramos pulled me in from the side. Blood soaked through my sleeve. Everything swam. But we were in the air. Safe. Alive. Back at base, the medic stitched me up. Numbed it, I'd had worse. Still, the pain lingered. Not just in my arm but deeper, in my chest. After the debrief, I sat on the edge of my bunk. My uniform still streaked with dust and dried blood. I pulled out my phone. A single message blinked on the screen. From Renee. Are you okay? Just 3 words, but they meant everything. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, "Mission complete. We saved them. I got hit, but I'm okay." The typing dots appeared instantly. I've been reading about SEALs, about what it takes. I had no idea what you've been carrying. I smiled faintly. I didn't need you to know back then. I just needed you to believe me now. She replied almost right away. I do. I really do. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from the wound, not from the noise, but from something else peace, maybe. A kind I hadn't felt in years. 2 days later, we returned stateside. Just a few hours before I had to report back, I made a stop. Renee's apartment. She opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes widened when she saw the sling on my shoulder. I told you it was dangerous, she said, half joking. I gave her a lopsided grin. It's just a scratch. She stepped aside. Come in. Inside, it smelled like fresh coffee. Her walls were lined with books and framed medals. On her desk, I saw something I didn't expect, a printed article about women in special ops. She'd highlighted it. I've been trying to understand, she said quietly. Not just the missions, you, all of you. I sat down slowly. You don't have to. I want to, she said. We talked for hours. Not just about war, about childhood, about the ways we missed each other, even in the same house, about Dad's pressure, about Mom's silence. I never asked what you wanted, Renee said. I just assumed. I shrugged. You weren't the only one. But you never gave up, she said, even when no one saw you. I looked at her. I almost did. She nodded. I know. I'm glad you didn't. When I left, she hugged me. Not stiff, not forced. Real. For the first time in our lives, it felt like we were sisters, not rivals. Not strangers. Just 2 people trying to heal. And as I stepped into the street, I looked up at the sky clear, quiet, calm. For the first time, I wasn't just the seal in the shadows. I was a daughter. A sister. Seen. And I was finally ready for what came next. 2 weeks passed quietly after that visit. I returned to my routine, though the tempo had slowed. My shoulder was healing, and I was temporarily off field duty. I spent more time behind a desk, helping train new recruits, reviewing mission logs, and catching up on overdue reports. The silence after years of non-stop motion felt strange, but not unwelcome. In it, I had time to think, time to feel. One morning, while grabbing coffee at the base mess, I got a call from Renee. Hey, she said. I need a favor. Her voice was tight, a little nervous. Sure, what's going on? I have this formal event, she said. Air Force banquet. They're honoring a few officers, and I'm presenting one of the awards. Can you come with me? I paused, surprised. You want me there? Yes, she said quickly. I want them to meet you, not just as my brother, but for who you are. There was a long silence between us before I answered. I'll be there. The night of the banquet, I wore my full dress blues. I hadn't pulled it out in a while, but everything still fit. I checked the mirror before leaving. The ribbons on my chest, the trident over my heart, it all looked the same, but I didn't feel the same. This wasn't about medals or recognition. It was something else now. Renee met me outside the hotel venue. She was in uniform, too clean, polished, confident, but her face lit up in a way that had nothing to do with work. "You look sharp," she said, nudging me. "You clean up well too," I grinned. Inside, the room was packed. Officers, dignitaries, family members. Everyone buzzing with polite conversation and clinking glasses. Renee led me through the crowd, introducing me to colleagues. Some had heard of me, some hadn't, but all were respectful, curious. Then came the moment. Renee stood on stage, reading off a list of names, pausing before each to share a short story. Then she took a deep breath and glanced toward me. "There's one more person I'd like to recognize tonight," she said. "Someone who taught me what real strength looks like. Someone I once overlooked." I felt the room turn toward me. She continued, her voice steady. "He's not Air Force, he's Navy. And I used to think that meant he didn't understand discipline or sacrifice. I was wrong. Tonight, I want you all to meet my brother, Commander Wheeler, SEAL team leader." The applause started small, then grew. A few officers even stood, and just as I started to rise to acknowledge them, a general seated at the front stood tall and gave a sharp salute. "To the man who led the rescue mission in Sector Echo," he said. "Your bravery saved lives, including the daughter of my oldest friend. I salute you, Commander." I stood still, stunned. For a second, everything slowed. The noise faded. All I could hear was the quiet thud of my own heart. I looked over at Renee. She smiled. Proud. Not of herself. Of me. Later, after the ceremony, she walked beside me outside into the cool night. "I should have done that a long time ago," she said. "You didn't owe me anything," I replied. "I know," she said, "but I needed to, for you and for me." We stood there for a moment, the wind brushing against our uniforms. "Feels like we're finally on the same side," I said. She laughed softly. "We always were, we just didn't know it." And in that moment, the years between us, the fights, the silence, the old wounds, they didn't vanish. But they didn't hurt anymore either. They had shaped us. But they didn't define us. Not anymore. A few months later, Renee came to visit me on base. Not for a speech, not for a ceremony, just to spend time together. She brought snacks, old family photos, and a stubborn determination to beat me at cards. It was the first time in years we had been just siblings again. No ranks, no uniforms. No comparing medals or service records. Just us. We sat outside under the fading sun, sipping bad vending machine coffee and laughing at stories we'd nearly forgotten. Like the time I got stuck in the laundry chute trying to spy on her sleepover. Or when she tried to teach me algebra using candy and ended up eating all the rewards before we got through one problem. At one point, she got quiet and looked at me. "You know," she said, "for a long time I thought I had to be the best to matter, to Mom, to Dad, even to you." I didn't say anything right away. I just listened. "I thought if I could be perfect, maybe I'd be enough." She continued. "And when you took a different path, I told myself it meant you gave up. But you didn't. You just fought your battles your way." I nodded. We both did. She smiled, that same crooked smile from when we were kids. "I'm glad we finally stopped fighting each other." "Yeah," I said, "there are enough real battles out there." Before she left, she handed me an envelope. "Don't open it until I'm gone," she said. Later that night, I sat on my bunk and opened it. Inside was a simple card. On the front, it read, "To the one who taught me what courage really means." Inside, she'd written, "Not every hero wears a uniform, but the bravest I know does and happens to be my brother." I sat with that for a long time. We had come a long way, she and I, from silence to understanding, from rivalry to respect. The world may have only started to see me recently, but Renee finally did. And maybe, just maybe, I started to see myself two-note as the forgotten sibling, or just a seal butt as someone worthy, someone whole. Family can wound us. But sometimes, they're the ones who help us heal too. A few weeks after Renee's visit, our parents invited us home for a family dinner. Just the four of us. No guests, no uniforms, no speeches. It felt strange driving up to that old house again, like stepping into a chapter I'd closed years ago. But this time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt different. Mom greeted us at the door with that same tight hug she used to give when we came home from school. Dad was by the grill, wearing his worn kiss-the-cook apron, acting like it hadn't been years since we'd all shared a meal without tension crackling in the air. We sat around the table with roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and Renee's favorite pie. It felt like a movie scene, too good to be real. But it was. For once, we weren't pretending. We weren't keeping score. We were just talking, laughing, remembering. At one point, Dad cleared his throat and looked over at me. "I read that article," he said. I looked up, surprised. "Which one?" "The one about your team, that mission in the Strait." "Oh, yeah." He nodded. "That was something. You were leading that?" "Yeah." He leaned back, eyes glassy but proud. "Never knew half of what you'd done. Guess I didn't ask enough." I wanted to say it was okay, that I didn't need his praise anymore. But I also knew part of me still did. "Thanks, Dad," I said quietly. Then Mom reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. We didn't always know how to show it, but we were proud. Both of you, always. Renee smiled at me from across the table. No competition in her eyes, just warmth. That night, after dinner, she and I sat out back under the stars just like we used to when we were kids, whispering dreams and secrets. "You ever think about what's next?" she asked. "All the time," I said. "Still want to be invisible?" I shook my head. "Not anymore. I want to build something. A life, maybe a future that's more than just surviving." She nodded. "Me too." We didn't say much after that. Sometimes silence says enough. Later, as I lay in the guest room, I thought about how far we'd come. From rivalry to understanding, from silence to connection. Maybe we weren't just fixing things between us. Maybe we were breaking old patterns for good. The world outside still had chaos. But here, in that quiet house, under the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the creak of old floorboards, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the kind you fight for. The kind you finally allow yourself to feel. In the end, this wasn't just a story about a Navy SEAL or a decorated intelligence officer. It wasn't about medals, rank, or war stories told over dinner tables. It was about something much deeper, something that so many of us struggle with in silence. Being seen, being valued by the people who matter most. From the start, we followed a boy who lived in the shadow of his sister, overlooked by his parents, dismissed as the less impressive one. We saw how that shaped his identity, how it pushed him to prove himself not out of arrogance, but out of a quiet longing to be enough. And then, we watched him become something extraordinary. Not because he wanted the world to notice, but because he had something inside him that wouldn't give up. We also saw how hard it is to return home when people still see you as the person you used to be. How painful it is when your accomplishments are invisible to your own family. And yet how powerful it is when they finally do see you, when they listen, when they recognize your worth without needing an audience or a title to tell them what to feel. At the heart of this story is one simple truth. Every person wants to be seen. Fully. Not just for what they've achieved, but for who they are. And sometimes, it takes time, years even, for those closest to us to finally understand us. But that doesn't mean we stop showing up. It doesn't mean we stop growing. It doesn't mean we stop loving. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been compared, overlooked, or quietly underestimated, this story is for you. You're not alone. And more importantly, your value isn't decided by someone else's inability to see it. You get to decide who you become. And when you walk your own path with courage and kindness, even those who once misunderstood you may one day come around. Maybe not with dramatic speeches or salutes, but with something even more powerful: understanding, respect, and a simple "I see you now." So, what can we take away from all this? Maybe it's time to stop waiting for others to recognize you and start recognizing ourselves. Maybe it's time to have that long overdue conversation with a sibling, a parent, or even with ourselves. Maybe it's time to stop hiding the parts we're proud of just to make others comfortable. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. Share your experience. You never know who else might need to hear it. And if you found meaning in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's more where this came from, more stories about growth, family, healing, and finding your voice in a world that too often asks you to stay quiet. Because your story matters. And it's time the world heard it.